The rain had been falling for hours when I finally found the road again. The wipers dragged across the windshield. Smearing streaks of gray as the headlights caught the glint of something metallic up ahead, a rusted sign half swallowed by vines. St. Augustine Memorial Hospital, closed since 1983. I don't remember deciding to stop. I just did. Maybe it was a hum in the radio, or the way the static started forming patterns, faces, between the silence. The building waited at the end of the road, like it had been expecting me. Its windows were empty sockets, glass long gone, and the pale moonlight pressed through in thin ribbons of dust and fog. When I stepped inside, the floor gave a low sigh beneath my boots. The air was cold in a way that didn't feel natural, too still, too heavy. My flashlight flickered once, then steadied. There were old wheelchairs, folded beds, crumbling charts still hanging by the nurse's station. But behind all of it was a sound, faint, almost like breathing. Not mine, not close, but not far either. Every hallway looked the same, yet somehow I always ended up back where I started. The entrance, the peeling walls, the dark doorway at the end. That door had been closed when I arrived. Now it stood open just a crack, and that's when I saw it. A hand, pale and still, resting on the frame, as if it had been waiting for me to notice. It was just past midnight. The hospital had been closed for years. No one came here anymore, except me. The halls still smelled of antiseptic and rain, metal and dust. Something faintly sweet beneath it, like old flowers left in a vase too long. I used to work here, a long time ago. I don't remember why I came back tonight. Maybe curiosity, maybe something else. The power was supposed to be gone, but the emergency lights still pulsed a dull, amber glow. They made the corridor feel alive. Breathing, I walked past the old reception desk. Paper scattered across the floor like fallen feathers. Each step echoed too long. Then a faint crackle. It came from the wall speaker above the elevator. Static at first. Then a whisper that shaped itself into something almost human. Patient 042. I froze. The PA system hadn't worked in years. I checked it myself the night we shut this place down. All the wiring cut. All the consoles disconnected. The whisper came again. Clearer this time. Please report to pediatrics. My throat felt dry. There was no pediatrics anymore. The east wing had been demolished. Still, my feet began to move. Down the corridor. Past the rooms that smelled like wet plaster. Past the stairwell where someone had once written "Help me" in dust. Every light hummed as I passed. Like they recognized me. At the end of the hall, the nurse's station waited, half buried under files and cracked plastic. A console still sat there, covered in cobwebs, and one small red light blinked on the panel. Blink, blink, blink. The rhythm felt impatient. I reached out. My fingers hovered above the button. The metal was cold, too clean, as if someone had just wiped it. When I pressed it, the static hissed again, then silence. A faint breath came through the speaker. Shallow, uneven, then a voice. A child's voice. I can't find my room. I stared at the console. The microphone was dead, but I leaned closer anyway. Who is this? No answer. Only the sound of air moving slowly, as if through a narrow hallway. The red light flickered faster. Somewhere in the distance, a door clicked open. I swallowed. The air smelled like damp cloth and rusted copper. The voice came again, closer now, though I hadn't pressed a button. Can you help me? My hand shook. Something about that voice. I knew it, but I couldn't remember from where. I turned to look behind me. The corridor stretched into shadow. The emergency lights dimmed for a moment, then flared back to life. Something small moved at the far end, a shape too short to be an adult. It stopped when I looked at it. I blinked. It was gone. The intercom crackled once more. Room 12, please. Room 12. That was on the ground floor. Pediatrics. I shouldn't have gone, but I did. Each step echoed softer than the one before, as if the building was listening. I passed a mural at the stairwell, the one the children had painted. Faded blues and yellows, smiling faces melted by time. At the bottom, the smell hit me harder. Dust, mold, something like singed fabric. The hallway to room 12 was darker than the rest. The floor tiles were cracked, wet with condensation. Every few feet, I could hear a faint tapping, like someone dragging fingers along the wall. The door was still there. 12, Pediatrics Recovery. It hung slightly open. The PA speaker above the frame buzzed with faint static. And then, that same voice again. I've been here so long. I pushed the door open. Moonlight spilled into the broken blinds, silver and thin, painting lines across the floor. The bed was still in the corner, sheets gray with dust. A child's drawing taped to the wall, a stick figure holding hands with another beneath the sun. The intercom hissed softly. Then a whisper I almost didn't hear. You left me. My chest tightened. Something cold slid down my spine. I didn't. Static swallowed my words. And then a sound from the bed. The sheet moved, slowly, like someone breathing underneath. I stepped back, my heel crunching glass. The air thickened, heavy with old air freshener and decay. The red light on the wall blinked once, then went dark. I reached for the door, but it closed on its own. The intercom came alive again, louder now, the voice trembling, distant, almost crying. Please, don't leave again. I pressed both hands to the console beside the bed. The metal burned cold against my palms. Who are you? No reply, only the slow, rhythmic breathing beneath the sheet. And then I remembered. There had been a boy, 7 years old. Asthma. He'd been in this very room when the power failed. I was the one on call. I told myself there was nothing I could have done. But the look in his eyes, I still see it when I close mine. The breathing stopped. The silence afterward was worse. Thick, endless. The red light blinked once more. Then nothing. I waited. Minutes, maybe hours, listening for another word, another sign. There was only the hum of the building settling and the faint echo of my own breath. When I finally stepped into the hallway, the lights began to shut off, one by one, following me out. By the time I reached the front doors, the PA system whispered again. Discharge complete. The static faded, and the hospital went quiet. It was the only door still locked. Every other room stood open. The old hospital breathed quietly around me, walls pale as bone, ceiling tiles sagging like wet paper. My footsteps, soft against the dust, each one swallowed by the long hallway. I'd been through every wing, every floor, but the fourth floor felt different, too still. There were no echoes here, only the faint hum of electricity that shouldn't exist anymore. And that door, room 413, its handle was silver beneath a coat of grime, cold when I touched it, colder than the others. The small glass window was painted over from the inside. I couldn't see through, but I thought I saw something shift behind it. A faint flicker, like someone walking past a light. I waited. Nothing moved again. In the records room, most of the patient files had crumbled, but there was one folder still intact, set apart from the rest, as if someone had placed it there on purpose. Mira D., admitted in 1973, discharged. The line after discharge was blank, just an empty dash, and a note written in faint pencil. Do not enter room 413. My throat felt tight. I told myself it was superstition, old staff rumors. But the handwriting, it didn't look old. It looked recent. I carried the file down the hallway. The air grew heavier the closer I got. It smelled faintly of antiseptic and wilted flowers. I tried the handle again. Still locked, but this time a soft click. The latch gave way on its own. The door creaked open slowly, as though something on the other side had been waiting. And inside, the room was clean. No dust, no cobwebs. No smell of rot or rust. The floor shone faintly under the weak light slipping through the curtains. The bed was neatly made, sheets pale blue, and on the bedstand, fresh flowers, white lilies. Their scent filled the room, sharp and sweet. They couldn't have been there for more than a day. Someone had been here. Recently, I stepped closer. The air felt warm against my face, different from the cold halls behind me. There was a soft hum near my ear, like someone breathing quietly just beside me. But when I turned, the hallway was empty. I looked back at the file in my hands. Myra's last note, written in the corner of a hospital form. He says the room is safe now. He says I can rest. The ink was smudged, maybe by tears, maybe by time. The window curtain stirred. No wind, just movement, gentle, slow, like someone brushing past it. My eyes caught something beneath the bed. A pair of shoes. Women's shoes, placed neatly side by side. When I crouched to look closer, I saw dust gathered around them, but none on top. I whispered her name before I realized I had said it aloud. Mira. The hum in the air stopped. The silence afterward was thick, too complete. Then a soft exhale, like someone had been holding their breath. I turned toward the bed. The flowers trembled, petals loosened one by one, falling soundlessly onto the sheets. I stepped back, my shoulder brushing the doorframe. Something brushed back, not hard, just enough to let me know I wasn't alone. The curtain lifted again. Light spilled across the wall in pale strips, and for a moment, I saw the shape of someone sitting on the bed, head bowed, hands folded in her lap. When I blinked, the shape was gone. Only the flowers remained, and the faint impression of someone's weight still pressing the sheets. I stood there for a long time, listening, waiting. The hum returned, lower now, almost gentle. It followed me as I stepped backward out of the room. My hand found the doorknob again, still warm. I closed it carefully. The latch clicked shut. When I looked down, the folder in my hand was gone. In its place, a single lily petal, soft, cold, still damp, as if it had just been placed there. I walked the hallway in silence. Every open door watched me leave. By the time I reached the stairwell, the faint hum had vanished, and behind me, far down the corridor, room 413 was locked again. The next morning, I came back. The hallway looked the same. Every door open, every wall peeling, except for one. Room 413. The door was sealed shut. A small tag now hung from the handle, under maintenance. But through the crack beneath the door, I saw something white. A petal, still fresh. The corridor was darker than I remembered. The kind of dark that swallowed outlines until everything became the same shade of gray. My shoes whispered against the tile. Each step echoed longer than it should have, and then faded too fast. I carried the little radio with me. It was old metal edges cold against my palm. I'd been using it to stay calm, tuning into the local stations, pretending the building wasn't completely empty. But halfway down the hall, the station slipped. The voice of the host fell apart into static. Soft, broken waves of whispering static. I stopped, tilted the antenna. The signal didn't come back. Instead, something else tuned in. Ward B, patient transfer, East Wing. The voice was distant, crackling through layers of dust and time. It sounded official, steady, like someone reading from a page. I frowned. The hospital had been abandoned since the 90s. There shouldn't be any transmissions. I took another step, and the radio hissed louder. Every word bled into the static, then returned sharper. Code blue, repeat, code blue. My breath fogged in the chill. The walls seemed to hum, like the sound was traveling through them. Old announcements, looping between plaster and wire. I turned the dial, tried to lose it, but the voice followed. Each click only made it clearer. Assist in the East Wing. The corridor bent slightly left. That was the direction the voice said. The East Wing. I didn't want to go there. The air smelled heavier that way, like wet concrete and rust. Still, I kept walking, because stopping felt worse. As I passed the door to radiology, the static deepened. A low hum, almost rhythmic, filled my ears. It was soft, but beneath it, something pulsed. A heartbeat? No, the power grid. Maybe. All staff evacuate immediately. I froze. The words were so clear, I could hear the breath between them. A man's voice, calm but urgent. The radio felt heavier in my hand. My thumb hovered over the switch, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it off. The lights above me flickered once. Then again, the hum grew into a faint whine. I looked back. The corridor behind me was empty, black, endless. My reflection wavered in a broken window, barely human in the flicker. Get out of the east wing. This time, the voice wasn't distant. It was inside the static, right beside my ear. The words came with a burst of white noise, so sharp it made me flinch. Then silence. Complete silence. The kind that fills your head until you start hearing your own pulse. I took a step back. The tile beneath my heel was cold, damp. The air had a taste now, metallic like old batteries. I wanted to run, but something in me needed to see. I turned toward the end of the hall. The emergency lights buzzed. Once, twice, and then they came on, all at once, flooding the east wing in a red pulse. It was like the building took a breath. The glow stretched down the corridor, trembling over the peeling paint, the cracked signs. In that light, I could see the outline of stretchers still parked by the walls, sheets draped over them, shapes beneath them. Still, I whispered into the air, "Hello?" No answer. The red light pulsed again, longer this time, and in the corner of my eye, something moved. A shadow crossed the hall, slow, steady, like someone walking past a door just out of sight. The radio came back to life, a low whine, climbing higher until it broke into whispering again. Not words this time, just breath, soft, uneven breath. Close. I clutched the radio to my chest. Its metal shell was warm now, too warm, like someone else's hand had been holding it, not supposed to be here. The voice cracked through, so faint I thought I imagined it. Then the emergency lights flickered one last time and went out. The red faded back into black. Only the static remained, thin, trembling, alive. I turned and walked the other way, slowly, carefully, each step echoing into the dark. The radio stayed pressed against my chest. Its hum followed me, faint but constant. When I reached the stairwell, I stopped and looked back. The hall was empty again. No red light, no shadow, but through the static, beneath the hiss, I heard it one last time. "Don't come back." And then nothing, just the hum of the old radio, and the long, endless breath of the hall. The halls were empty that night, just the hum of the exit light, flickering above me, and the faint echo of water dripping somewhere too far away to see. I was the only one left in the building. At least, I thought I was. The tiles were slick under my shoes, old wax, never quite dry, the kind that held footprints for just a second too long. That's when I heard it, a slow, hollow roll, metal against tile. I turned the beam of my flashlight down the corridor. A mop bucket, yellow, dented, was drifting toward me. It moved with a rhythm, like it had weighed inside, but there was no one pushing it. The air felt thick, like something was waiting to be seen. Each wheel squeaked, one higher than the other, until it stopped just a few feet from me. I should have left it there, but the closet door beside it was open, just a crack, wide enough to breathe through. The smell hit first. Old bleach, damp rags, and something else. The sweetness of rot that had been scrubbed over, not gone. I pushed the door wider. The hinges whispered, as if they'd been used 1,000 times too many. Inside, it was smaller than I remembered. No windows, just one bare bulb overhead. It buzzed quietly, light trembling against the walls. There were photos, dozens of them, each one taped in careful lines, edges curling from age. Hallways, always the same hallway. This hallway, some were faded, sepia, from another decade. Others were clearer, the kind of gray that only digital can make. The same corridor stretched down every frame, but something shifted, subtly, year to year. A sign missing here, a new clock there, tiles replaced, like time itself was peeling off the walls. I stepped closer. My fingers brushed from the photos, crinkled, warm from the light. Someone had written dates beneath them. And then one more, near the bottom corner, freshly printed, edges still white. I bent down. The photo showed this hallway. Tonight, the same light flickering, the same bucket in the corner. And in the center, me, standing there, flashlight raised, eyes wide, my breath caught. I hadn't heard the shutter. I hadn't seen anyone take it. The bulb above me flickered once, then again, and the room dimmed. Something creaked in the hall, soft, deliberate, footsteps dragging just out of sight. I turned, but the door was closing on its own. I lunged forward, grabbed the handle, cold metal slick under my palm. It stopped halfway, like someone was holding it from the other side. For a moment, we just stayed there, me breathing against the wood, then breathing back. Then it released. The door swung open, and the hallway beyond was empty. The bucket was gone. Only the faint trail of water led away, disappearing around the corner. I looked back once more at the wall of photographs. They were fluttering slightly, though no air moved in the room. And at the bottom, a new photo was sliding into place. Fresh tape, still curling. I didn't want to look, but I did. It showed the closet, the walls, the bulb, the photos I was staring at. And me, again, closer this time, face turned toward the camera, mouth slightly open, like I was about to speak. The light went out, and in the dark, I heard the bucket roll again. Slow, careful, back toward the door. I never came back to that hallway. But sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see that flash, bright and silent, like someone's taking another picture of me right now. The uniform still hangs there, behind the front desk, gray with dust like it's been waiting. The name tag says Marion. Letters faint, edges rusted. I don't know why I stopped to look at it. Maybe it was the way the fabric swayed, even though the air was still, like someone had just passed by. That night, the halls felt longer. The lights flickered in slow breaths. Each step echoed too far, then disappeared too soon. I couldn't sleep. The ward was quiet, but not peaceful. It was the kind of quiet that listens back. Somewhere down the hall, a soft hum began, low, trembling, almost like a lullaby. It came with a rhythm, tiny clinks, metal brushing metal, a medicine tray, moving. I told myself it was nothing. Old pipes whined through the vents, but the song didn't stop. I followed it, bare feet on cold tile. The air smelled of alcohol wipes and rain. The hum grew clearer, a woman's voice calm, steady, too steady. At the corner, I saw her, a figure by candlelight, uniform pressed, white apron soft against the glow, hands arranging bottles on a tray. Every movement exact, like a nurse rehearsing a routine she'd done 1,000 times. The hymn trembled on her lips. Something old, something almost kind. I should have spoken, but I couldn't. I just watched her work until she paused and lifted her head. The flame caught her face, and there was nothing there. No eyes, no mouth, just a pale curve where features should have been. The candle flickered once, then went out. The humming didn't stop. It filled the dark around me, circling like breath against my ear. I took a step back. The tray rattled on its own. Glass rolled, clattered, broke. Then silence. Heavy, complete. When I turned to run, the hall stretched wider than before. Doors that should have been closed were open now, each one just a little, enough to see slivers of shadow moving inside. Somewhere behind me, a whisper, the soft shuffle of shoes against tile. I didn't look back. By morning, the uniform was gone. Only the hook remained, bare and rust-stained. But the name tag was on the counter, clean now, shining, and under the glass tray beside it, a single note written in faint blue ink, night round complete. Nurse Marion. The hallway hasn't had power in years. Dust clings to the walls like ash. Every step I take leaves a faint print and then fades. The old building should have been silent. It usually is. But that night, something clicked in the dark. A metallic echo, soft, hollow, alive. I turned toward it, breath caught in my throat, and down the corridor, behind a veil of broken light, the elevator door slid open. It shouldn't have. No electricity. No generator. Nothing left in this place except peeling paint and mildew. But still, the elevator dinged. A long, tired chime, as if it remembered what it used to be. The air changed. It felt heavier, warmer near the door. I could hear a low hum like breath behind metal. Inside, one light flickered. Pale, yellow. It swayed back and forth, almost in rhythm, as if the building itself was breathing. And then I saw it, a figure, standing inside, not facing me, just standing in the far corner, turned toward the wall. Still, completely still, its head tilted slightly like it was listening. I froze. My throat was dry. The light trembled again, cutting the figure into half shadow. For a moment, I thought maybe it was just reflection, a trick of the glass. But the light caught something soft, hair moving with a hum. That's when I noticed the panel beside the door. Every button was dead, blackened, cracked, except one. It glowed faintly red sub-basement. I frowned. There was no sub-basement here. There never had been. This building only went down to level 1. I've seen the blueprints. I've walked every floor. And yet, the button waited, pulsing, like a heartbeat under the dust. The elevator door began to close, slowly, gently, as if it didn't want to wake the thing inside. Without thinking, I stepped forward. My hand pressed against the cold metal. The door stopped halfway, shivering under my palm. Inside, the figure hadn't moved, not a single twitch. But now I could smell something faint, old perfume, faintly floral mixed with rust and mold. It made my stomach turn. The hum deepened. Somewhere beneath the floor, gears shifted, mechanical bones stirring after decades of sleep. And then the figure breathed, just once, a shallow inhale that echoed like a sigh through the shaft. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The light inside flickered faster now, each flash cutting the figure into pieces. Shoulders, hair, pale arm, then nothing. When the light steadied again, it was gone. Only the corner remained, empty, dark, waiting. I took another step back. My heel brushed something, a small panel on the wall, loose from years of neglect. Behind it, wires, all severed, dead. There was no way that elevator could move. Still, I heard it, the slow slide of the doors closing. My chest felt hollow. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. The hum rose until it filled the hall. It wasn't just noise anymore. It felt like something alive, pressing against the walls, against me. The door sealed shut with a gentle sigh. Then the button lit up again, sub-basement. I watched it pulse once, twice, and then stay steady. The elevator moved. The floor trembled under my shoes. Dust fell from the ceiling like ash. Somewhere below, the shaft moaned, metal on stone. It was descending into a place that shouldn't exist. I took a step forward and pressed my ear against the door. There were sounds, soft, distant, like whispers through a vent, too faint to make out words, too human to ignore. Then a thud, heavy, wet, something striking inside of the door once. My breath caught, and then silence, a long, crushing silence, the kind that fills every inch of air until even your pulse feels too loud. I waited there, frozen, minutes, maybe hours. Time stopped meaning anything. Then, the light above the door flickered again. The elevator was coming back up. The hum grew louder, slowly, relentlessly. Whatever had gone below was returning. The doors opened halfway, enough to let a thin line of air whisper through. It smelled wrong this time. Cold, like stone soaked in water, and something faintly metallic. The light inside buzzed weakly. And on the floor, just before the gap sealed again, I saw it. A shoe. Old. Dusty. Still damp at the toe. The door closed. The light above it went dark. No more hum. No more warmth. Just the quiet weight of the building again, as if it had exhaled. I waited, listening. But it never opened again. Only the faint smell of rust remained. And when I looked closer at the panel, the sub-basement button was gone. Just smooth metal. Cold. Blank. As if none of it had ever been there at all. Still, sometimes when I walk past that hall, I can feel a change in the air. A pressure. Like something breathing just behind the door, waiting for the next call. It was late. The kind of late where the halls forget to echo. I shouldn't have been there. The children's ward had been closed for years. But the new wing was still under construction, and I'd taken the wrong staircase. The door had been left open, just enough for the light from the hall to spill through, pale and dust-thick, like the air was trying to remember how to move. Inside, the playroom waited. Toys sat frozen mid-motion. Plastic horses leaned forward, stuck in a gallop that never finished. A dollhouse without a roof. A train half off its track, its wheels webbed in thin gray threads. The smell was heavy. Old crayons, metal beds, and that faint sweetness of something once alive. I stood there, feeling the quiet bend around me. It wasn't empty quiet. It was watching quiet. Near the center of the room was a shelf. Every toy looked like it had been placed by a careful hand, except one. A wind-up bear, brown fur rubbed thin on its face. One glass I'm missing. Its metal key still jutting from its back. It tilted slightly forward, as if listening. I don't know why I touched it. Maybe because it looked so lonely. Maybe because I wanted to hear something. Anything besides my own breath. The key turned. Once. Twice. The mechanism groaned. Then caught. The bear began to move. Its paws lifted, slow, dragging arcs through the dust. Its head twitched side to side, a small mechanical dance that didn't fit the silence around it. I waited for it to stop, but it didn't. It kept turning and turning. The tinny hum under its fur deepened, like something inside was winding itself tighter, beyond what was possible. I stepped back. My heel brushed against paper. Drawings, scattered across the floor, curled at the edges, faded by time. Crayon strokes, thick, uneven lines. A hospital drawn by small, trembling hands. Windows, always windows. And outside them, a black shape. It changed between pages. Sometimes tall, sometimes wide, sometimes just a smear of darkness stretching along the glass. In one, it had arms. In another, just an outline. I picked up the last drawing. My fingers left faint smudges on the crayon wax. This one was newer, the paper less yellowed, the lines clearer, the same black shape, but this time it was inside the room, standing next to someone wearing my jacket, my shoes, me. The bear clattered once, then went still. Silence returned, thicker than before, like the air was waiting for something to happen. I looked at the window. Its glass was fogged from the inside, as if something had breathed too close. Beyond it, only the courtyard, empty, bathed in that dull, sleepless hospital light. I tried to laugh. It came out dry. But I didn't put the drawing down. Every instinct told me to leave. But something in that quiet made it hard to move. The door behind me creaked. Not open, just enough to whisper. The air felt heavy. My reflection in the glass shifted slightly, a fraction slower than I moved. Then I heard it, a soft scraping, like tiny feet on tile. The bear had turned again. It faced the window now. Its one glass I fixed on the fog pane. The metal key spun by itself, smooth, steady, like unseen fingers were winding it. The hum returned, low and pulsing. It seemed to vibrate through the floor, through my shoes, through my chest. Something in the reflection moved behind me, not quickly, not sharply, just a slide of shadow, like a curtain being pulled by breath. I turned, but the corner of the room was empty, only the drawings on the wall, pinned there by rusted tacks. Each one swayed softly, as though a breeze passed through only them. I stepped closer. The papers fluttered, whispered. The last drawing, the one with me beside the dark figure, had changed. The crayon lines had smeared. My drawn face now turned toward it. My drawn hand was reaching out. The hum behind me stopped. And then nothing. No breath. No dust in the air. Not even the faint tick of the hallway clock. Only stillness. I don't remember leaving. I just remember walking down the corridor that smelled of bleach and old sleep. Every light flickering once, as if it knew I was passing through. When I reached the stairwell, I realized my hand was still clenched. The paper was inside it. I never wound the bear again. But sometimes when I pass that old wing from the outside, I see movement through the glass. Just faint shapes drifting between the shadows. And every so often, something small turns in the window light, like a metal key, still winding itself over and over for someone who never left the room. It was colder in the record room than anywhere else in the building. The air didn't move, but the paper did, fluttering softly, like breath. Rows of metal shelves, boxes stacked higher than my head, each one marked in fading ink, patient names, years, case numbers. The The hum came from somewhere deep between the aisles. Not machinery, not lights. Something lower, steady, as if the walls themselves remembered every whisper. My flashlight trembled when I lifted it. Dust floated through the beam, slow, deliberate, like it knew I was watching. The labels blurred past me. 1979, 1984, 1992. But one single box, sat apart, half open, the lid trembling slightly, though there was no draft. I felt the hum inside my teeth when I got closer, and when I leaned down, I saw my name written on the side. Every letter neat, careful, permanent. The paper beneath my fingers felt warm, almost like skin. Inside, there wasn't much. Just a manila file, thicker than the rest. A faint smell of disinfectant. And beneath it, something metallic, cold. I opened the file. My photos stare back. Recent. Taken in this very hallway, it seemed. The next page was a medical chart. My age, my blood type, my address. But the date at the top, it was 3 days ahead. The hum grew sharper. Not louder, just closer. My fingertips brushed the next item, a hospital wristband. Plastic, clean, the kind they snap around your arm when you're admitted. It had my name, too, and the same date, 3 days from now. I swallowed hard, but the air stuck halfway down. The paper around me rustled restless, like hundreds of unseen hands were shifting through their own files. I whispered, or thought I did, "Who put this here?" But the sound didn't belong to me. It came back softer, slower. My name, repeated once, then again. Every box seemed to lean toward me, like the room itself was listening. I tried to step back, but the floor gave a quiet groan. And with that sound, the lights flickered. Just once. Long enough for the shelves to seem taller, the aisles narrower. When the light steadied, the file in my hands was gone. Only the wristband remained, resting on the table, coiled into a perfect circle. My thumb traced the edge. Still warm, still humming. I should have left it there. I should have walked away. But my hand moved before I could think. And the moment the band touched my wrist, the hum stopped. All at once. The silence was heavy, pressing in against my ears. I could hear my pulse, slow and thick. And underneath it, a faint shuffle. A page turning somewhere behind me. Then another. I turned the light, searching. Every file on the shelves had shifted. Slightly open now. Paper sticking out like pale tongues. The nearest one glowed faintly at the edges. I reached toward it, hesitant, shaking, and saw another wristband inside. Not mine this time. Different name. Same date. 3 days from now. The air grew colder. Static prickled at my skin. I took a step back, then another. The shelves trembled gently, like they were breathing. A soft, rhythmic creak followed me toward the door. When I finally turned the handle, the hum returned, faint, almost kind, like it was saying goodbye. The wristband around my arm tightened once, just enough to remind me it was real, and then loosened. I left the record room open, didn't turn off the light, but when I looked back from the hallway, the door was closed again, and through the tiny glass pane, I saw boxes swaying, slowly, like they were waiting for the next name. Maybe mine, maybe yours. It started with a smell, faint at first, like something left open too long. Sweet, but sharp. I thought it was paint thinner, maybe something leaking through the vents. But it lingered. Ether, that was the word that came to me. From nowhere, from memory. I hadn't smelled it since I was a child. Since the night my father took me to the old hospital on the hill. He said the lights inside flickered, even though the building was condemned. Now, standing in this corridor, the scent was back. It clung to my jacket, to my hair, like it wanted to stay. The hallway was narrow, its tiles yellowed with time. Every step echoed into a kind of hollow hum. The walls seemed to breathe, pulling me deeper in. At the end of the corridor, a door waited, half open. A faint green light pulsed behind it. I shouldn't have gone closer. But the smell grew thicker, like invisible hands were guiding me by the lungs. The brass handle was cold. Too cold. I pushed the door open. The air changed. Heavy, metallic, and underneath, That unmistakable sweetness of ether. I realized where I was. The operating theater. Rows of empty seats curved above me like a quiet audience. The observation glass was fogged, and the table below still gleamed faintly beneath a single flickering lamp. Something about the light felt wrong. It didn't pulse like electricity. It breathed. The shadows on the wall began to stretch, leaning toward one another. Thin, precise shapes, as if cast by people who weren't there. Their outlines curved, reaching for tools that weren't on the tray anymore. I froze. The room smelled thick enough to taste. Metal and ether, cold and memory. A small tray stood beside the table, empty, except for a few deep scratches where something sharp had rested. The hum deepened, almost like whispering through gauze. My chest felt tight. I turned to leave, but the door had drifted shut behind me. I heard it then, a faint clink, metal on glass. I looked toward the table. The instruments, they were moving, not all at once, just a slow trembling. Forceps lifted an inch, then dropped. A needle rolled toward the edge. And then, out of nowhere, a scalpel rose. It didn't fall from a shelf. It didn't slide from the tray. It hovered, suspended midair. My breath stopped in my throat. The light flickered once, twice, then everything went still. The scalpel hung there for a heartbeat, glinting in that green glow. Then it dropped. It landed between my boots. The blade stuck upright in the tile, still trembling. The smell rushed over me like heat. I stumbled back, hitting the metal table behind me. The lamp above hissed and flashed. For just a moment, I saw them. Shadows bending over me. Masks, hands gloved in nothing. Shapes where I should be. One leaned close. I could feel the breath that wasn't there, cool against my cheek. Then silence. No movement. No hum. Just a flicker of the lamp and the faint drip of something unseen. The scalpel had fallen flat now, its edge catching the dim light. I didn't pick it up. I walked backward, slowly, watching the room breathe without me. When I reached the door, the handle was warm this time, almost human. The moment I stepped into the hall, the air cleared. No smell, no hum, only the echo of my heartbeat in the hollow corridor. When I looked back, the green light was gone. The door stood wide open, but the room behind it was dark, completely dark. I listened for movement, for breath. There was nothing, but the scent, it still followed me, faint and cold, ether, and underneath it, something else, something like antiseptic and rot, and the faint whisper of someone saying my name from behind the glass. I didn't turn back. I just walked, every step slower than the last, every breath tasting like chemicals and memory. The air felt heavier the farther I went, until I reached in the hall and realized the scent wasn't fading. It was moving with me, like something invisible had climbed inside my lungs and decided to stay. It started with the lights, one by one, a perfect line through the empty ICU corridor. They hummed softly, like insects against glass. Cold, white light, sharp enough to sting the eyes. I stood at the entrance, my shoes pressing against the wax floor. The air was heavy, antiseptic, stale, faintly metallic. It clung to my tongue, bitter and wrong. Every room I passed was the same. Beds stripped bare, machines humming on standby. No nurses, no patients, only the faint rhythm of electricity, pulsing through the walls like veins. The lights ahead flickered again, then steadied, always just enough to pull me forward. I told myself it was maintenance, a timer, but deep down, I knew someone or something was leading me. The ICU should have been dark. The power was supposed to be cut off hours ago. And yet, the monitors were alive. Each one glowed faintly green, beeping, displaying jagged lines that rose and fell in perfect rhythm. But the beds were empty. I stepped closer to one of the monitors. The heart rate pulsed at 72 beats per minute. Steady, human. The line rose, fell, then the pattern began to stutter. Numbers shifted, 72, 80, 100, 120, 160. The beeping quickened, louder, sharper. The green line trembled. And then flat line. Silence. I waited. Breath held. The air felt colder, thinner. The monitor flickered. Static rippled across the screen. And then, slowly, letters began to form. RUN. The word glowed there, pulsing like a heartbeat. I stepped back. My heel hit the wall. The hum of the lights deepened, no longer steady. Another monitor turned on in the next room. Then another, and another. Each screen filled with movement. Frantic, impossible movement. Heartbeats racing. Screens trembling. Wires twitching as if something beneath them was alive. The hallway lights dimmed, just slightly. Enough to cast shadows that didn't belong to me. Long, reaching things swaying across the floor. A soft rustling began, like bedsheets shifting. But all the beds were still. I could hear breathing. Not mine. Slow, strained, dragging through the air like lungs filled with dust. My throat tightened. I turned toward the exit, only to see the lights flicker again, this time in reverse. The line of brightness began to shut off. One, then the next, coming toward me. Each time one went dark, the hum beneath it stopped, like the life inside it was snuffed out. The machines followed. Their beeps faded one by one. I started walking faster. My footsteps echoed too loudly, too sharp in the hollow air. Halfway down the hall, another light blinked to life. Far ahead this time. Alone, it shouldn't have reached that far. But it did. It pulsed once, twice, then held. A single square of pale light waiting at the end of the corridor. Something was there, just beyond it. I could make out the shape of a gurney, tilted slightly toward me. A figure lay on it, covered in a sheet. Still, but the sheet moved. Barely. Like breath. The lights behind me shut off completely. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the machines had stopped. Then, that faint hum again. Not from the walls this time. From inside my chest. The same rhythm as the monitors. The same pulse. I froze. Every instinct told me to move. But my legs wouldn't listen. The sheet on the gurney began to slide. Slowly down the side. An arm fell out. Thin. Gray under the hospital light. And on its wrist, my watch. The one I'd lost 3 nights ago in this very ward. The hum grew louder. It wasn't in the walls anymore. It was in my ears. My teeth. My blood. The monitor beside the gurney flickered awake. Lines danced across it. Erratic. Violent. Then flatlined. Again. The screen glowed. RUN. This time, the word repeated. Over and over. Faster. Run, 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 run. I turned. The corridor behind me was black, but the air in it moved. Something heavy dragged against the tiles. Slow. Wet. I didn't think. I just ran. The lights above me flickered back to life in perfect rhythm, guiding me again, this time toward the exit. One by one, they came on as I passed beneath them. But behind me, they died again. I could hear the dragging. Closer, keeping pace. The last door, the glass one, was just ahead. I reached it, slammed my palm against the release bar. It didn't move. The lights flickered again. Everything went still. I turned, breath sharp in my chest. The hallway stretched behind me. Empty, no dragging, no breathing, just silence. Then one final flicker. Every monitor in the ICU came on at once. Dozens of screens lighting up in the dark, each one showing the same thing. A single, steady heartbeat. Mine. Then flatline, and the lights went out. It's been quiet in this building for months. The east hallway is always colder than the rest. Even when the heaters are on, you can feel a kind of damp chill crawling through the cracks. All 6 windows face the same direction, toward the empty field, toward the rusted fence and the slow-moving fog that never seems to lift. 5 of them are broken. Sharp glass still clings to the edges like teeth, but the 6th, the one at the end, stays perfectly whole. No dust, no cracks, just clean, clear glass. I walk that hallway every night. My shoes scrape softly against the tile. The walls hum with old electricity. And sometimes when I reach that last window, I feel watching back. There's a reflection that doesn't quite match mine. It blinks too slow, tilts its head when I don't. At first, I thought it was a glass, warped, uneven, but glass doesn't breathe. I started avoiding that end of the hall. Told myself it was just a trick of the light. The moonlight hits differently there, pale, silvery, like water, and yet the air around that window never moves, even when every other pane rattles in the wind. Tonight, the fog is thicker. It presses against the outside like a living thing. I can't even see the fence anymore, just a gray blur that swallows the horizon. And as I walk past the first broken window, I hear it. 3 slow taps. Tap, tap, tap. They come from outside, not from the hallway, not from the walls, but from that last perfect window. I freeze halfway down the corridor. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, flickering once, twice, and then stay steady. The air feels heavy, too still, too aware. I tell myself not to look. I keep walking, my footsteps uneven, but then I hear it again. Tap, tap, tap. The rhythm is patient, not demanding, just waiting, like someone who already knows I'll come. My throat tightens. I turn my head, slow, careful. The glass catches a light, a soft shimmer, and there it is, my reflection. Only it's smiling, a thin, curved grin that stretches just a little too far. Its eyes, my eyes, glint darker than the hallway around me. I feel my chest tighten. I don't smile, but it does. Then it lifts its hand. 3 fingers tap gently against the glass from the inside. Tap, tap, tap. I stumble back. The air around me feels warm for the first time, like someone breathing too close. I can see the fog outside pressing against the window, shifting, but not breaking it. Nothing ever breaks it. And then, slowly, the reflection turns away, not to the side, but out toward the field, like it sees something beyond the fog. Something I can't. My pulse stutters. I take another step back, nearly tripping over a fallen tile. For a second, I think I see something else in the glass, a shape standing where my reflection was. A shoulder, the outline of hair moving like water. Then the fog swallows it whole. I don't remember running, but I must have. My hand hurts from clutching the railing at the stairwell. My breath comes out shaky, uneven. Even from downstairs, I can still feel it. That pull toward the east hallway, toward window 6. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in my apartment felt louder. The hum of the fridge, the distant pipes breathing under the floor. And beneath it all, I kept hearing those 3 taps. Slow, measured, patient. In the morning, I told myself I'd go back, just to see, just to prove it wasn't real. When I returned, the fog was gone. The sun had come through pale and yellow, warming the floor. But when I reached the end of the hallway, the glass was cracked, not shattered, just one long line, running across the middle like something had pressed against it from the inside. And on the sill below, someone had left 3 faint fingerprints, too small to be mine, too close together. I haven't walked that side since. But sometimes when the wind shifts, I still hear it. Tap, tap, tap. And every time, I think about what it was smiling at, out there in the fog. What it saw that I refused to. It was colder beneath the hospital, the kind of cold that pressed against the skin, quietly, deliberately, as if the air itself remembered things it wasn't meant to. The stairwell smelled of bleach and rust. My hand slid along the railing, damp metal, slick with condensation. The lights above flickered in slow, nervous pulses, and every time the corridor dimmed, the silence thickened. I'd never been this far down before. The basement door was heavy, painted over too many times. Its hinges groaned like something waking up. The sign beside it read morgue, but the letters were fading, half swallowed by peeling paint. Someone had scratched a number into the metal, just a single 0. No meaning, or maybe too much. When I pushed it open, the air changed. It wasn't just cold anymore. It was still, like nothing in that space had moved in years. Rows of drawers stretched out in both directions, their steel handles dull beneath the low, white light. Each one had a number. Each one was shut tight. And beneath it all, a faint hum, not from the lights. Lower, deeper, alive somehow. I stood there for a long time, listening, breathing slow, each breath making a small cloud in front of me. That's when I heard it. A soft tap. Then another, like fingertips against metal. I froze. It was coming from the far end of the room, from one of the drawers. Tap, pause, tap, tap. The rhythm wasn't random. It felt patient, almost polite. I stepped closer. Each footfall echoed, then disappeared into the hum. The air smelled different there. Wet dust and something sweet, like decaying flowers. Tap, tap, then silence. Drawer number 19. The handle was cold enough to sting when I touched it. My reflection wavered on the steel, pale, uneven. It didn't look like me. The eyes were too still, too wide. I whispered, "Hello?" The word came out dry, barely a breath. No reply. But when I pulled the drawer, slowly, metal scraped against metal, a long aching sound. It slid open an inch, then stopped. I tried again. It came loose suddenly, jerking forward. The tray was empty. No sheet, no form, nothing but the reflection of the flickering light above, and a small mirror, lying flat against the metal. Its glass fogged, as if someone had just breathed across it. My chest tightened. The hum in the room grew louder, closer, but I couldn't tell from where. I lifted the mirror. It was colder than ice. My fingertips burned. Through the fog on the glass, I thought I saw something move, not behind me, but inside the reflection. A shape, too quick to name. Then 3 small marks appeared on the fog, like fingertips, from the other side. I dropped it. The sound echoed, sharp and brittle. The fog cleared in an instant. The surface was clean. Empty again, but the tapping had returned. Not from drawer 19 this time. From several drawers at once. Tap, pause, tap, tap. It moved down the rows, like something shifting beneath the floor, or inside the walls. I stepped back, heart stumbling against my ribs. The mirror spun once on the ground before settling, face up, and even from where I stood, I saw it, my reflection, and behind me, the faint outline of another, standing too close. I turned. Nothing there. Only the hum. Only the drawers, quiet now. The light above steadied, and everything looked untouched, as if I hadn't moved at all, as if the tapping had never happened. But the mirror was gone. Not shattered, not slid away. Just gone. Only the thin shape of frost remained where it had lain, like the print of a small hand. I backed toward the door, trying not to breathe too loudly. Each step made the floor groan softly, as though the room was listening. At the threshold, I turned one last time. All the drawers were still closed, all the numbers in their places, except 19. It was open again, just a little, enough for a pale wisp of air to curl out, warm, like breath. Then the hum stopped. Everything stopped. Only my own heartbeat remained, loud in the silence, steady and not entirely mine. It was supposed to be there. Every floor plan said so. A small red rectangle marked emergency exit B, just past the west wing corridor. But when I walked there was only a wall. Smooth plaster, slightly off color, like it had been painted over one too many times. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and antiseptic. Old hospital air, stale, unmoving. Fluorescent lights hummed above me, their pale glow flickering against the tiles. I checked the map again. The exit was supposed to be right where I was standing. I pressed my hand to the plaster. Cold, solid, still. Something about it didn't feel right. A small ripple under the paint, like a breath. I leaned closer, and that's when I heard it. A dull knock. It came from inside the wall. At first, I thought it was pipes, or maybe a loose frame shifting behind the drywall. But the second knock came clearer, slower, deliberate. 3 knocks, then silence. I whispered, "Hello?" Nothing, just the faint hum of the lights above. But the air had changed. It felt tighter, like the whole hallway was holding its breath. I pressed my ear to the wall. There, a hollow echo, like there was space behind it. A small room, or a tunnel. And then another knock, right against where my ear rested. I stepped back. My heart wasn't racing yet. Not fear, exactly. More like curiosity, laced with hope. Maybe there was another way out. Maybe the blueprints were right after all. I found a metal scraper near an old maintenance cart. The handle was sticky with rust. I wedged it against the edge of the wall and pressed. The plaster cracked. A thin line appeared, white dust falling like ash. I pulled again. Behind it, darkness. A cavity large enough for air to move through. And something else. A whispering draft brushed across my face. Cold and sweet, like rainwater through stone. Then a hand. It didn't reach out. It pressed back. A knock against mine. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat buried behind the wall. I whispered again, "Can you hear me?" This time the knock answered. Twice. 2 quick taps. Then another pause. I felt dizzy. The corridor seemed to stretch. The hum in the lights deepened, a low vibration, like static building beneath the floor. I kept scraping. The wall opened wider, revealing slats of wood behind the plaster. Something moved between them, a shadow shifting with no light to cast it. A faint smell rose up, wet earth and iron. I almost said blood, but no, it was older than that, like a room that hadn't breathed in decades. Then I heard the knocking again. But this time, it wasn't from inside. It was beside me, on the tiles, on the ceiling, like the building itself had learned to knock. I froze. My hand hovered near the open wound I'd made in the wall. And in that silence, I realized it wasn't asking to be let out. It was answering. Something inside the wall had been listening long before I found it, listening to footsteps, breathing, voices that didn't belong here anymore. The plaster bulged slightly. A faint outline appeared, a shape pressing from within. I could almost see the curve of a face, the hollow of an eye. I stepped back. The knocking became frantic, then stopped, completely still. For a moment, I thought it was gone. I could hear only the faint ringing in my ears. But then, a single tap. From behind me, I turned. The hallway was empty, just that sterile white glow, stretching endlessly in both directions. I looked back at the hole. Darkness stared back. Cold air seeped out, whispering across my fingers. I wanted to cover it, seal it again, pretend it had never been there. But something about the silence behind it, it felt aware, like it had learned my rhythm, my pulse, and was waiting to mirror it. The next morning, the maintenance team patched the wall. Fresh paint, smooth surface, brighter than before. They said there was no record of any door ever existing there. No exit B. But if you walk down that corridor now and press your hand to the right spot, you can feel it. The faintest vibration, like a hand waiting for yours. And if you stay very still, you might hear it again. A quiet knock. Slow. Patient. Waiting for someone to answer. It started in winter. Nights long enough to forget where the day had gone. I stayed in the old apartment, the one with the thin walls, and the vent above the bed that never stopped humming. At first, I thought it was just air, just the low whine of the heater pushing through the ducts. But then it spoke, a faint voice, not loud, barely there, like someone breathing through cotton. It came between the hums, like the air itself was learning to speak. I froze the first time I heard it. 3 words, stretched across the silence. We never left. I sat up, staring at the vent, watching the dust tremble in the pale light from the street. It wasn't wind. It wasn't the building. It was something trying to be heard. The next night, I turned off everything. The clock, the phone, the fridge hum. I wanted to catch it, to prove it was real. The air went still. Then, through the thin metal slats, came that same whisper, sliding to the dark like breath across my ear. We never left. I whispered back, though I don't know why. Who's there? Nothing answered. Only a low shiver in the ducts, a movement too soft to be air. I grabbed a flashlight. The beam caught a swirl of dust, spinning slowly inside the vent like something alive. For a second, it formed a shape. Shoulders, a jawline, a hollow face pressed against a mesh. Then it broke apart. 1,000 drifting specks, and the whisper faded again. I didn't sleep. I left the flashlight on all night, its beam pointed at the vent. Every few hours, I'd see it pulse, a faint breath pushing the dust outward, then pulling it back in. By morning, I could taste the metal in the air, dry, bitter, like the building itself was exhaling through me. Days passed. The voice came more often, whenever I was alone, or when the room felt too quiet. Sometimes I thought I heard others behind it. Layers of whispers stacked and tangled, all repeating the same line in rhythm. We never left. I stopped turning on the heat. Still, the vent breathed. Still, the dust moved. When I stood beneath it, I could feel the air stroke my hair. Cool and careful, like fingers trying not to wake me. Once, I tried sealing it shut. I pressed old towels against the grate, taped the edges, but the whisper came through anyway. Muffled, but still there. It was patient. It waited until I stopped resisting, until the tape came loose on its own, until I stopped pretending I didn't hear. Now I listen. I sit by the vent at night in that same dim light. The dust moves when I breathe, and sometimes it moves first. I've started to understand their rhythm. It's not just words anymore. It's a plea, a memory, something caught between the walls. When I press my ear close enough, I can almost feel them, like warm from the other side of the metal. Not gone, not angry, just waiting to be noticed. Sometimes I whisper back, softly, so they know I'm still here. The air still hums. The dust still swirls. And every night, before sleep takes me, I hear them breathe those same 3 words. We never left. And maybe neither have I. It was after midnight when I found the cabinet. The record room was colder than usual. Dust hung in the air like faint fog. The hum of the old fluorescent lights pulsed against the silence. I was only supposed to organize the archives, but something about the far corner drew me in. A single metal cabinet, different from the rest, older. Its surface was dented, its paint eaten by time. The tag on top had no department name, just one word, handwritten in fading ink, unlisted. The handle was stiff. I had to pull twice before it gave in. The drawer slid open with a sigh, as if breathing out the dust of decades. Inside, hundreds of manila folders. No barcodes, no patient numbers. Each marked only by a name and a date. But the date stopped suddenly, right after 1983. Every folder after that year was empty, just blank pages, stained at the edges by moisture. I flipped through them slowly. My fingertips turned gray with paper dust. Each file felt heavier than it should have been, like the air itself was pressing down. There were notes in some, handwritten, rushed, almost like someone was trying to finish before being interrupted. Admitted without record. Night observation only. No trace after 3rd visit. No signatures. No discharge dates. And all the names, none of them existed in the hospital's registry. I checked, twice. A faint static buzz filled the air. The lights flickered. For a moment, I thought I heard breathing behind me. Slow, even, like someone else was reading over my shoulder. I turned. Nothing but the rows of file cabinets, stretching into the dark. The hum returned. I forced a laugh under my breath and kept going. Then one folder caught my eye. It wasn't dusty like the others. It looked recently placed. The label read, Case 47B, Reevaluation. My chest tightened. The ink was fresh, still a deep blue, and the name beneath it was mine. At first, I thought it was a coincidence, maybe a mistake. I opened it carefully, pages trembling in my hands. Inside was a photograph, black and white, faded at the corners, but clear enough to see the face. My face, older, lines carved deep into the skin, eyes empty, unfocused, a hospital gown tied loosely around the shoulders. I felt something shift inside me, a quiet tearing sound, like fabric stretched too far. I checked the details again, searching for anything to explain it. Admission date, March 3rd, 1983. Discharge status, unresolved. Condition, recovered memory loss. Continued observation recommended. The paper shook in my hand. I read it over and over until the words blurred together. That was 42 years ago. I tried to laugh again, but the air caught in my throat. It felt like someone else was breathing through me. I don't remember being here in 1983. I wasn't even alive then. At least, I thought I wasn't. Something cold touched the back of my neck. I turned again, and for the briefest second, I saw the cabinet door still swinging, like someone had just stepped away. The lights dimmed to a pale hum. The static deepened. a low, rhythmic crackle, like a whisper trying to form words. I backed toward the door, holding the file to my chest. But every step felt heavier, as though the air thickened around me. My own reflection caught in the glass of the record's window, but it didn't move when I did. The reflection stayed still, watching. The folder slipped from my hand. Paper scattered across the floor. Every photograph, every single one, was of me. Different rooms, different years, same vacant stare. Some had dates decades apart. Some had none at all. And on the last page, a note in that same rushed handwriting. Subject continues to reappear. Memory resets consistent. I don't remember kneeling down. I don't remember breathing. Just a faint rustle of paper and metallic hum pressing into my ears. A shadow passed over the light. Soft, shapeless, but close enough that I felt the air shift. The pages trembled. Something unseen brushed against my arm. And then silence. All at once. The light stopped buzzing. The hum died. I was alone in a soundless room, except for one drawer slowly sliding open again behind me. It creaked to a stop. Inside, another folder waited. No label, just blank. I reached for it, my hand shaking, and caught sight of the reflection again. This time, the reflection smiled, gently, like it remembered something I didn't. The air felt thinner, the quiet deeper. I closed the folder, and the lights never came back on. The building has been quiet for hours. Too quiet, maybe. The kind of silence that presses against your ears, where every small movement feels too loud. I was walking through the surgery wing again. Bare bulbs flickered above, one after another, like weak pulses in a dying body. The air smelled faintly of rust and something damp. Every step echoed, but there shouldn't have been an echo, not in a wing this narrow. The tiles were cold beneath my shoes, a sticky cold, like the floor had been washed but never dried. My sleeve brushed the wall. Wet paint, I thought, but when I looked, my fingertips came away dark. Not paint. At first, I told myself it was old residue, something left behind from before they closed this place. But the smear looked too fresh, too red against the pale walls. I wiped it on my coat. The color spread like ink in water, and the smell, iron heavy, unmistakable. I should have turned back then. But the sound drew me forward, a soft trickle, steady, patient, like water filling a glass. It came from the far end, the old operating room, the one with the broken window, where moonlight slips in like a blade. The door was half open. The light above it flickered. On, off, on. I stood there a while, breathing in the slow rhythm of that dripping, until I couldn't stand not knowing. The hinges moaned when I pushed it open. Inside, everything was still. The metal tables, the cracked tiles, the broken surgical lamp, bent at the neck like it was ashamed. But the sink was alive. Water spilled from a rusted tap, pooling slowly in the basin. Dark, thick, almost black. I leaned closer. The trickle was too slow to feel it that much. Yet it rose, inch by inch. I reached out, my hand trembling, and turned the tap off. But it didn't stop. The liquid kept rising, whispering against porcelain, lapping at the drain like it was breathing through it. My reflection wavered in the surface. Pale face, tired eyes. And beneath it, movement. Something beneath the reflection, shifting. It looked like my face, but older, hollow, eyes darker, deeper. I blinked. The image didn't. A slow breath escaped my chest. I reached for the towel beside the sink. It was stiff with old stains. I wiped the basin, hard, once, twice. The water cleared, but my reflection stayed wrong. The stain, it wasn't on the porcelain anymore. It was on me. Thin red lines ran down my cheeks, from eyes to chin, like tears that wouldn't dry. I touched my skin, dry, clean, but in the mirror, blood clung to every pore. I scrubbed again, desperate. The towel tore my hands. My reflection smiled. No sound, just that steady, patient drip, still coming from somewhere. I looked down. The sink was empty now, completely dry. No water, no stain, only the faint smell of iron rising from the drain. I stepped back. The light flickered again, and for an instant, I saw the room differently. Dark streaks on the walls, handprints near the door, a trail leading toward the sink, and ending there, like someone had been dragged and never left. My throat tightened. The echo of my own breathing filled the space. Soft, uneven, then a drop hit the floor. I looked up, the ceiling above the sink. Wet, a small red bead forming at the seam, growing heavy, then falling again. Another, and another. The stains ran down the tiles, finding the drain like they knew the way. I wanted to leave, but I couldn't move. There was a noise in the pipes now, a gurgle, then a low hum, like a throat clearing itself. The mirror fogged slightly, though the air was cold. In the mist, I saw my reflection turn its head slowly toward me. I froze. The real me didn't move, but it did. Its mouth opened, and I swear I heard it. Not a voice, but a breath drawn through teeth. Then silence. The fog cleared. The reflection was still. Mine again. I backed away, hands shaking, and left the towel on the floor. In the hallway, the air felt different, cooler, still carrying that faint smell of metal and water. When I reached the end of the corridor, I looked down at my hands. Clean, perfectly clean, but under the light, just for a second, they glistened, like something invisible was drying there. I rubbed them hard against my coat. The fabric smeared faintly red. And that's when I realized it wasn't the sink that was stained. It was me. Still is. Even now. No matter how long I wash, the water always runs a little darker when I touch it. It started 3 nights ago. The halls were too quiet, too clean, like something had scrubbed every trace of life away. The hospital always slept around this hour. Monitors blinking faintly. Machines humming like distant insects. The kind of silence that makes your own breathing feel too loud. I was doing rounds on the 3rd floor of the old wing. Most of it was shut down years ago. But some rooms still held patients. The ones no one wanted to move. The floors there are polished to glass. Every step echoes long after you stop walking. That night, I kept hearing a second echo. One that didn't belong to me. I'd take a step, soft rubber sole on tile, and then there'd be another, just slightly behind. Lighter, measured, at first. I thought it was just the hallway playing tricks. Long corridors do that. Reflect sound back at you. But then when I turned the corner, I saw it, my reflection, in the glass door of the supply room. Except it wasn't quite right. It moved slower, a heartbeat behind me. And when I tilted my head, its face tilted too, but with a delay, like it was remembering what to do. I blinked. It was gone. Only the faint smell of antiseptic hung in the air, and that low, steady hum of the hospital breathing in its sleep. The next night, it followed again. Every corridor I took, it was there, not seen but felt, like static under my skin. When I stopped to chart patients' vitals, I saw it reflected again, not in glass this time, but in the window of a door. A nurse, same uniform as mine, standing exactly where I was standing, but facing me. I turned, and there was no one there, only the faint shape of something pale, sliding away into the dark end of the hall. My hand started to shake when I tried to write the time. The pen trembled against the paper, ink bleeding like veins. By the 3rd night, I couldn't pretend it was nothing. Every time I walked, there was another set of footsteps, always half a second behind mine. If I stopped, it stopped too. If I turned fast, it would vanish, but the air would still feel heavy, like someone had just brushed past my shoulder. I began to notice other things. A faint tap, like fingernails against metal. A reflection in the floor pump that didn't match my motion. A soft exhale from behind when no one was there. The patients were asleep. The night staff all on the lower floors. So I walked the corridor again, alone, just to prove to myself that I wasn't losing it. Each fluorescent light flickered as I passed under, one by one, as if something was moving with me. The smell of disinfectant grew stronger, like bleach poured straight into my lungs. When I reached the last room, room 317, the air changed. Thicker, heavier. I could see my reflection again in the window, but she was closer now, the shadow nurse. Her cap tilted the same way as mine, her head slightly bowed, her hands at her sides. But she was breathing differently, slow, measured, like she was waiting. I raised my hand to test it, and she raised hers too. But when I dropped it suddenly, she didn't. She just kept holding it up. That's when I knew. It wasn't me. The lights buzzed above. Somewhere, a machine beeped once, then fell silent. I took one step back, and behind me, another step followed. I turned fast, but there was only the hallway, empty and bright, and cold. The reflection in the window was gone, but the hum of the lights had deepened, low, vibrating through my chest. I wanted to leave, but my legs wouldn't move. I stood there listening, and then something whispered behind my ear, a single breath, so close I could feel the warmth of it. But when I spun around, nothing, just a ripple in the silence. I looked down finally, and that's when I saw it. A single shoe print on the tile. Not mine. A nurse's shoe, the same white sole. But the heel was turned toward me, pointing forward, toward where I stood. The corridor lights flickered again, and for half a second, her shape returned. Not reflected, not copied. Standing right there, inches behind me. No face, just a faint outline of a cap and the shape of someone breathing. Then the light steadied, and she was gone. Only the faint scent of alcohol wipes lingered, and that single print, slowly fading into the shine of the floor. I don't take that hallway anymore. I tell myself it was exhaustion, that maybe I imagined her. But sometimes in other parts of the hospital, I still hear it. The echo of footsteps that don't belong to me. Always a few steps behind. Always following. And when I stopped, they stopped too. Just waiting. It was long past midnight. The halls were empty. The lights, too bright for how quiet it was. I remember thinking the cafeteria shouldn't be open, but the door wasn't locked. It never was. Inside, the air felt heavy, like it hadn't been moved in hours. Trays lined the tables in perfect rows, each one cold, each one waiting. I could see my reflection in the metal lids. The surfaces were clean, too clean, as if someone had wiped them moments ago. There was no smell of food, only bleach, and something faintly metallic, like coins rubbed between wet fingers. The clock above the serving counter caught my eye. Its second hand moved backward, slowly. Tick, tick. Each sound landed behind me, not in front of me. I stood there a long time, just listening, trying to decide if it was broken, or if I was. My shoe stuck slightly to the tile floor, that faint tack, that whisper of old mop water. Every step felt too loud. The table stretched in both directions, all the way to the far wall. Every seat pulled neatly under, every tray aligned, like the room was waiting for something. I placed my hand on the nearest chair. It was cold, the kind of cold that doesn't come from temperature, but from absence. And then, so faint I thought it came from inside my own head, a clink, metal on metal. Then another, utensils. I froze. The sound grew. A fork brushed against the tray. A knife shifted, softly, rhythmically, but no one was there. I could hear them breathing, or maybe it was a ventilation system, a steady rise and fall in the air itself. The tick of the clock grew uneven, then stopped. Silence pressed down, thick as fog. I could almost taste it, dust and copper. When the clinking started again, it wasn't faint anymore. It was dozens of them. Dozens. Eating. Chewing nothing. Invisible mouths moving through cold air. The trays trembled slightly. Only slightly. As if touched by unseen hands. A spoon rolled toward me, slowly spinning to stop. I didn't move. I couldn't even breathe properly. Only shallow sips of air, each one trembling in my throat. The chair I'd touched earlier shifted an inch on its own, just enough to scrape the tile. That tiny sound was deafening. I backed away, step by step, until my spine touched the wall. Every table between me and the exit now seemed longer, stretched, like the distance itself had changed shape. Another clink, then a wet sound, as if something swallowed. My heartbeat filled my ears. I told myself it was pipes, old plumbing, settling metal. But I knew better. There was movement in the reflection of the trays. Blurred shapes, pale and hollow, bent over their meals. Dozens of them. Faces I couldn't see clearly, only the suggestion of mouths, moving in unison. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. They were all around me now. The smell changed. From bleach to something old, rancid, like spoiled milk and rotting bread. The air was thicker with every breath. It felt humid, warm, and wrong. The ticking clock began again, but now every tick was faster, spinning backward, counting down to something I couldn't name. I stepped forward once, thinking if I just reached the door, everything would stop. The room disagreed. The lights flickered. Every tray lifted, not far, just an inch, and then fell back in unison. A hollow metallic wave. Then nothing. No ticking. No clinking. No breath. The silence that followed was alive. It filled the corners, sat across from me at the table, waited for me to sit down. I didn't. I kept my eyes low, watching the edge of my own reflection ripple across the steel. It smiled back, but my face hadn't moved. The door behind me opened on its own, a softness of pressure, like exhaling lungs. Cold air brushed my back. I stepped through it, slowly. The moment I crossed the threshold, the cafeteria went still again. Utensils, clock, trays, everything, back to perfect order. I turned once, just to look, but the tables were already empty. No trays, no chairs, no reflection. Just a long room, washed in pale light, and the faint scent of something that used to be food. I stood there until the lights dimmed, until the clock, hands began to move forward again. And then I heard the faintest scrape, a chair pulling out from under a table, somewhere deep inside the dark. Just one, as if someone had stayed behind. It was late, long past visiting hours. The corridor had gone still, only the hum of the ceiling light, trembling, uneven. I'd been sent to inventory the old surgical wing, a place that hadn't seen a patient in years. The doors were swollen from moisture, and the air smelled of iodine and dust. Rows of empty stretchers lined the walls, all except one. It sat beneath a flickering bulb. Its frame was darker than the rest, its wheels locked into the cracked tiles. The mattress was sunken, a deep dent in the center, like someone had just been lying there. The straps hung loose over the sides, curling at the edges, stiff with age. But the weight hadn't lifted. I stopped breathing for a moment. The air felt heavy, as if the room exhaled through my lungs. I reached for the clipboard, pretending to focus on the checklist. Anything to keep my eyes off the hollow in the mattress. The light flickered again. Once, twice. When it steadied, the stretcher had moved. Only a few inches forward, but the sound of metal scraping tiles still echoed inside my chest. I told myself it was the uneven floor, that I'd imagined it, but the dent in the mattress had deepened. The fabric creased downward. There was no one there. My hands had gone cold. I tried to back away, but some small, broken breath, whispered out from the hollow. It was faint, barely a sound, like someone breathing through soaked cloth. I froze. The bulb buzzed, casting thin shadows that rippled over the mattress. I could see them moving in rhythm. Inhale, exhale. I took one step closer. The floor groaned beneath my shoes. The air around the stretcher pulsed, warm, damp, as if the room itself was breathing with it. I leaned down, and I heard it again. That exhale, slow, deliberate. It brushed my cheek. The smell hit next, metal and mildew, the scent of blood that had been washed, but never forgotten. My voice caught in my throat. I wanted to call out, but the silence pressed harder, as if warning me to listen instead. Something shifted beneath the sheet. Just once. A shallow rise, then stillness. The straps began to tighten, curling upward as though pulled by unseen hands. The buckles rattled softly, metal against metal, and then fell still again. The mattress rose slightly, as though whatever lay beneath the sheet had turned its head. I stepped back, my heel catching the leg of another stretcher. The clang rang through the corridor, sharp and hollow. The bulb above me burst. Glass rained onto the floor in tiny, glittering pieces. And yet, in the dark, I could still see the outline, that sunken shape, that faint indentation. Still breathing. I couldn't look away. Every inhale seemed to pull the air from my lungs. Every exhale pushed cold through my skin. I whispered, barely audible, "Who's there?" No reply, only that steady breath. And beneath it, a softer rhythm, like a heartbeat muffled in fabric. I took one more step back. The wheel lock snapped loose. The stretcher rolled forward, slowly, silently, until it stopped at my feet. The sheet had slipped halfway down. The mattress was empty, but the dent remained. Something unseen had risen, just enough to make the sheet hover, as if held by invisible hands. Then the breathing stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Not empty, but listening. I turned toward the hallway, the exit sign barely glowing red to the fog of dust. My legs felt heavy, each step dragging something unseen behind me. When I reached the door, I heard it, a single, tired exhale, close enough to warm the back of my neck. I didn't look back. The bulb flickered once more as I left, and through the thin crack of the closing door I saw the stretcher settle, the dent slowly deepening again, as if it had been waiting for me to leave. I keep having the same dream. A narrow hallway, white walls that hum faintly. The air smells like metal and old rain. At the end, a glowing sign. Fire exit. It's always pulsing softly, like it's breathing, like it knows I'm watching. I run toward it, barefoot, each step echoing too long. The floor feels damp, not with water, but something colder, like breath against my skin. When I reach the door, my fingers touch the steel handle. It's warm, almost human. Then I wake up, always back in my room. The sheets tangled. The window slightly open, as if I just climbed in from somewhere else. The dream started 3 weeks ago. At first, I laughed it off. Just stress, I thought, a mind chasing its own tail. But the dreams didn't fade. They sharpened. Each night, the hallway grew longer. The lights above flickered slower, the hum deeper, like it was inside my chest. Sometimes when I woke, I could still see the red glow behind my eyelids, still smell the faint smoke, as if something just burned nearby. Last night, I noticed something new. Before the door appeared, there was whispering, low, rhythmic, as if two people were standing behind the walls. I couldn't make out the words, only the tone, not threatening, not kind either, just waiting. When I ran this time, the floor gave slightly under my steps, like it was breathing too. The closer I got, the louder that whisper turned. And right before my hand touched the handle, someone whispered my name. That's when I woke up. But the whisper didn't stop. It lingered, just for a second, in the dark. This morning, I noticed something strange at work. At the end of the maintenance corridor, the one no one uses anymore, there was a new sign, red, faded, but still glowing faintly under the flickering light. Fire exit. I froze. The hum in the air felt the same as in the dream. A low vibration that settled in my teeth. It shouldn't have been there. That hallway leads nowhere. It ends in a concrete wall. Still, I walked toward it. Each step brought back flashes of the dream. The same metallic scent. The same weak light bleeding through dust. The closer I got, the quieter the building became. Even the pipes stopped their usual groaning. My own heartbeat became the only sound. The sign flickered once, then steadied, as if acknowledging me. The door was there, real metal, chip paint, handle polished from touch. It shouldn't have existed, but it did. A small plaque beneath the glowing sign read, "This exit leads to nowhere." I stood there, my breath catching against the silence. No one else in the building. No footsteps behind me. Just a low hum, steady, constant, like the dream refusing to fade. My hand trembled as I reached out. The handle was warm again. Too warm. For a moment, I thought I heard whispering again, but maybe it was just the blood rushing through my ears. When I opened the door, it wasn't darkness waiting. It was light, soft, pale, endless. A hallway stretching into nothing, the same as before. Only now, I was awake. The air smelled the same, metal, rain, faint smoke. I took one step forward. The floor bent slightly under my foot, then steadied. A hum filled the air again, deeper this time, as if the building was breathing through me. For a second, I thought I could hear my name again. It wasn't frightening anymore, just familiar, like a memory I've been circling back to. I don't know how long I stood there. Time doesn't move in that kind of light. Eventually, I stepped back and closed the door. The hum stopped. Everything fell silent, even my own thoughts. When I turned around, the hallway behind me looked different, brighter, cleaner, almost peaceful. I walked away slowly, feeling lighter with every step, like I'd left something important on the other side, something that didn't belong here anymore. Tonight, I know I'll dream again. I'll see that same pale hallway, that same breathing light at the end. But maybe this time, I won't run. Maybe I'll just stand there, watching the glow fade into stillness. And if I wake up back inside again, I think I'll be okay with that, because now I know some exits aren't meant to take you anywhere. Some are just there to remind you that you've already left. The hospital was quiet that night, too quiet for a building that old. Even the fluorescent lights hummed like they were holding their breath, flickering, slow, tired, pale against the green walls. I was the only one left in the West Wing. They called it Echo Ward. It was supposed to be closed for renovation, but someone kept leaving the door unlocked. The floor tiles were chipped, pale blue, stained yellow near the edges. The air smelled like bleach and something faintly metallic. Every footstep I took felt swallowed by the hall, then repeated. Once, a half second later. My heel, then my heel again. I stopped walking, and the second step stopped too. The silence afterward pressed against my ears. It wasn't empty. It was listening. I took another step. 2 echoes again, perfectly timed, like a mocking reply. At first, I thought it was the acoustics. Maybe the corridor's shape, narrow and tiled, was playing tricks. But the rhythm was wrong. It wasn't a reflection. It was response. When I breathed, I heard the breath return to me, softer, delayed, and then sooner, like it knew what I was about to do. Halfway down the hall, I reached the nurse's station. Old clipboards, rusted pens, a faint hum from forgotten vent. The clock above the counter ticked once, then ticked again. 2 identical ticks, the second a whisper behind the first, and then another, a third one, before the second had even finished. That's when I realized the echoes weren't following anymore. They were arriving before me. I called out, just a single word, hello? My voice came back twice, then once more, higher pitched, thinner, like someone else repeating from far away. And then the last one came first, a hollow hello, before my lips even moved. I covered my mouth, but it still came, that same word, already spoken by something ahead of me. The hallway split in 2 near the end. Left, toward the patient rooms. Right, toward the old operating theater. The left side smelled like dust and paper. The right smelled like wet iron. I heard a faint dragging sound from the right corridor, and its echo just behind me. 2 versions of the same thing, circling me like breath in a mirror. I turned toward the left. Every motion, every inhale, came back twice. The second always thinner. The first always too soon. My pulse was beating against my fingertips, and I started to notice the earlier echoes didn't belong to me anymore. They hesitated where I hadn't. They stepped when I didn't move. They breathed after I exhaled. I entered room 214. The door hinges cried softly. That same cry repeated once, then again, sharper, deeper. The air was colder inside, like the room had been waiting with its lungs empty. The light above flickered once, then just faintly flickered before it did, like the reflection of a thing that hadn't happened yet. The bed was stripped, only a thin sheet draped across the frame. A patient tag lay on the floor, unreadable, smudged. When I bent to pick it up, I heard it. Footsteps, soft, bare, ahead of me, not behind. Then the same steps echoed from behind me. 2 delays, 2 layers. And then the front ones moved closer. I froze. The air felt thick, vibrating, full of invisible movement. I couldn't tell where the real world ended anymore. When I breathed in, I heard the exhale first. When I blinked, I saw the flicker before my eyelids shut. The future was catching up. Or maybe it wasn't mine anymore. Something brushed against the sheet. It rippled, slow, weightless, as if touched by air that wasn't empty. Then a faint whisper came, not from behind me, not even beside me. It came from a point just ahead of my next thought, a whisper that said my name, twice, then once more, before I even realized I was about to hear it. My chest tightened. My own heartbeat echoed from the walls, faster than it should have been, and then slower, and then ahead of itself. I turned back toward the door. The hallway beyond shimmered, not visibly, but like something unseen was bending there. Each fluorescent bulb blinked in a different order, past, present, future. In that faint hum, I could hear footsteps overlapping. My own, their twin, and one more, coming before all the others. I didn't want to see what walked ahead of me, the version of me that was already there. So I closed my eyes and stepped backward. Once, the echo came late, then it came early, then it didn't come at all. When I opened my eyes again, the hall was still. Completely. Even the hum had stopped. Only silence. Heavy absolute. Then, faintly, a single footstep. Not mine, but where I would have stepped next. And I realized something terrible. The echo hadn't been following me. It had been leading, waiting, rehearsing, for me to catch up. The ward doors were closed now, but I could still hear faint breathing from the other side. 2 breaths. Then one. Then none at all. And in that hush, something whispered again. Soft, almost kind, "Your turn." It was cold when I opened my eyes. The kind of cold that lives inside metal. Beneath me, the gurney. The ceiling above was yellowed, with cracks running like thin veins. A light flickered in one corner, weak, stuttering. Every time it blinked, the room changed shape. I tried to move. Nothing happened. My arms, my legs, still. There was a soft hum. Machines, maybe, or breathing. The air smelled of rust and alcohol wipes. Too clean, too still. Something moved at the edge of my sight. White fabric, gliding closer. A figure. It leaned over me, skin pale as frost, eyes dull and distant, like they hadn't blinked in years. The thing wore a cracked stethoscope around its neck. The rubber tubing split open near the chest piece. It trembled slightly, as if remembering how to work. Its voice came slowly, pressed between breaths. "You're not supposed to be awake." The words brushed against my ear, almost kind, almost sorry, but my throat burned when I tried to speak. No sound came out. It smiled, not a human smile, more like a twitch beneath skin that didn't fit. The figure placed a cold disc of the stethoscope against my chest. I felt it, faint pressure, then a pulse. It tilted its head. Still beating, it whispered. Then silence. The hum in the room deepened. I realized it wasn't machines. It was inside my ears, inside my head. The walls pulsed faintly, breathing in rhythm with the sound. Each flicker of light showed something different. An empty tray, a second gurney, a shadow standing where no one was. My eyes watered from the brightness. Then the dark. The pale visitor moved again, circling the gurney slowly. Bare feet against tile. Each step softer than the last. I tried to remember how I got here. A hallway. A door I shouldn't have opened. Then the smell of antiseptic and burnt wires. Then nothing. The figure stopped near my shoulder. Its hand rested there, light, cold, almost gentle. "You weren't on the list," it murmured. "Not yet." My heart beat faster. I could feel it trying to push through my ribs. The cracked stethoscope trembled. The figure's head tilted again. "Too soon," it said, softer now, almost mournful. For a long time it didn't move, only watched, only breathed. Then it leaned close enough that I could see the lines along its skin, not wrinkles, cracks, like porcelain left too long in the cold. The light flickered once more. When it returned, the visitor was gone. The hum faded. The air settled. I lay there, still unable to move, staring at the ceiling in its slow-moving cracks. Somewhere nearby, a cart rolled down a hall. The wheels squeaked once, then stopped. I felt a faint weight on my chest. The broken stethoscope. Still cold, still listening. And in the quiet that followed, I realized the hum hadn't disappeared. It had moved inside my pulse. Every beat whispered the same words, softly, patiently. as if repeating a promise I couldn't escape. You're not supposed to be awake. The hallway ended where the paint had long since peeled into curls. A wooden door waited there, bowed, split down the middle, its hinges holding on like something that didn't want to let go. The plaque above it was tarnished bronze. It still read Chapel. I hadn't expected one in this wing. The hospital blueprints didn't mark it, but the door was here, and something faint was glowing from underneath. I pushed. The air that met me was colder than the corridor behind. It carried a scent of wax and damp pages. Olden books sat in collapsed piles, their covers swollen with moisture. Then one candle lit itself. The wick hissed softly, a tiny flame trembling in the pale air. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the whole aisle shimmered with flickering gold. Rows of pews emerged from the dark, each carved from dark oak, their surfaces warped, edges chipped like teeth. And yet, everything looked as if someone still prayed here. The wax hadn't melted all the way down. The flames swayed like they recognized me. There was no draft, no open window, but the air hummed, a low, tender vibration, like a choir trying to remember its own song. It began with one voice, high, almost childlike, then more joined in layer over layer, 100 murmurs folding together, weaving through the rafters. The ceiling arches were blackened with soot. Stained glass panes behind the altar had shattered long ago, but moonlight still found a way in, fracturing across the floor like broken halos. I walked between the pews, my shoes brushing against a carpet of old prayer cards. Some still had names written in careful ink. Some were blank. All were damp. The music swelled softly, hollow, distant, like it came from behind the walls. When I reached the front, the altar came into view. A single folder lay there, edges curled, paper gray with age. Resurrection Attempt 3. The ink was faint, but the letters pulsed in the candlelight. My breath clouded as I reached for it. The air around the folder was warmer, too warm. The wax nearby had begun to drip faster, like the flames leaned closer to watch. Inside were photographs, black and white, grainy and uneven. A hospital bed, a body on it, straps across the wrists, chest marked with symbols, drawn in thick dark lines. Someone had written a date in the corner, May 14th, 1972. The page beneath it was filled with notes, dense handwriting, shaky but determined. Subject displayed motor response. Eyes opened at 2:17. Choir initiated automatically. The candle nearest to me sputtered. The flame tilted, pointing toward the far wall. Something there moved, a shimmer, like breath against glass. The humming grew, stronger now. It wasn't harmony anymore. It was pleading. I turned. Every pew was empty, but the seats had indentations, soft dips in the dust, as if people had just risen. The candles flared. Their light pulsed in rhythm, matching the beat of my heart. Then, for a moment, I heard words inside the hum, not sung, whispered. Return what was taken. My hands tightened around the folder. Wax dripped onto the floor, tiny splashes against marble. On the altar, something else was forming, a shadow, its edges bending the light around it like heat above asphalt. It had no face, but I felt it looking through me. The choir stopped. The silence that followed was immense, thick, absolute, as though the whole building held its breath. Then came a single exhale, mine, shaky, uneven. The folder's pages lifted, fluttering as though caught in a breeze I couldn't feel. They flipped to the last page, a signature, and beneath it a name, my own. The candles nearest to me went out, one by one, each extinguished with a hiss, leaving curls of smoke that twisted upward, forming faint outlines of faces. I stepped back, nearly tripping over a pew. The hum returned, quieter, gentler now. A lullaby, maybe, or a prayer, but I couldn't tell if it came from the air or from inside my chest. I set the folder down, though my fingers didn't want to let go. As soon as it touched the altar again, every flame straightened, steady, still. No flicker, no movement, just calm, unwavering light. I stood there, watching wax gather in soft pools around the base of each candle. It smelled like burnt honey, Like something sacred and long forgotten, the choir faded into the walls, into the cracks, into the quiet. And I realized nothing in that room had ever been waiting for me. It had been waiting for the file. I walked backward toward the door, eyes fixed on the altar. The folder hadn't moved, but the shadow behind it seemed closer now. I reached the threshold. The candles dimmed, one final flicker of gold before all went black. And just before the door shut, I heard it again, a single whisper brushing against my ear like breath. Attempt 4 begins now. It was one of the smaller rooms on the second floor. Windowless, cold, a place they used to use for physical evaluations. At least, that's what the sign said. The door groaned when I pushed it open. It wasn't locked. None of them ever were. Not up here. Inside, mirrors. Every wall, every inch. Tall, full-length panels that face one another reflected me into forever. My own figure, stretching and fading into silver distance. For a moment, it felt endless, like I'd stepped between two halves of something that didn't belong in this world. The air was still, not silent, just still. I could hear the low hum of electricity somewhere behind the walls, a mechanical heartbeat. My breath left small circles of fog on the nearest mirror. I watched them bloom, fade, bloom again. There was no dust in this room. That was strange. The hospital had been dead for years. But here, the mirrors looked clean. Too clean. I took another step. The floor tiles clicked beneath my shoes. I glanced down, then up again. The reflection didn't follow. At first, I thought it was the angle, the light, but then I blinked, and I saw it clearly. In the mirror, I stayed still, my head tilted slightly to one side. A small, almost curious expression frozen on my face. I raised my hand. Slowly. It didn't move. The only thing that shifted was a faint shimmer across the glass, like heat above asphalt. It passed once. Then again. Then the lights changed. The room brightened in the mirrors. Not around me, only inside them. Suddenly, I wasn't staring into an empty room anymore. I was staring into another time. People walked through the reflection. Doctors, nurses. Someone pushed a stretcher past the glass, their shoes squeaking against a floor that wasn't under me. I could almost hear the rustle of scrubs, the faint chatter muffled through glass. The hospital was alive again. In every mirror, something different played out. One showed a nurse checking vitals. Another, a janitor mopping. Another, a patient standing by the window, whispering to no one. It was beautiful in a wrong kind of way. The stillness outside and the motion trapped inside, like memories, replaying for no one. Then one reflection caught my eye. Far corner, to the left, just behind my shoulder. Someone was waving. I turned quickly, but no one stood there, only my own empty back, reflected again and again. When I looked back at the mirror, the figure was still waving, a slow, gentle motion, fingers bent one at a time, like a greeting or a warning. It was me, the same face, the same clothes, but not the same eyes. Mine were wide now, afraid. His looked calm, soft, almost pitying. He mouthed something. I couldn't hear it, but I could see the shape of the word. Stay. The lights flickered. The other mirrors began to hum. One by one, their reflections changed, all showing me, standing perfectly still. Each one, a fraction off, a blink slower, a breath behind. Then the waving stopped. Every mirror version of me turned to look, not at me, but towards something over my shoulder. I didn't want to turn, but I did. Behind me, one of the mirrors wasn't a mirror anymore. It rippled, like water catching a heartbeat. The reflection on its surface didn't match the room. It showed the hallway outside, lights glowing warmly, footsteps passing by. The living hallway. I reached out. My fingers brushed the glass. It was warm. The hum grew deeper, almost like breathing. When I pulled my hand back, a print remained, glowing faintly, then fading. And inside the reflection, the other me stepped forward. No expression this time. No smile. No wave. He pressed his hand against the same place, perfectly lined up. but from the other side. The warmth bled through again, hotter now. It felt like standing too close to a furnace door. I whispered, barely audible, "Who are you?" He blinked, then tilted his head, exactly as I had done earlier. A perfect copy, but a second too late. The hum built until it filled the room. The mirrors around me began to tremble, images blurring together. Hallways, faces, flickering lights. And beneath it all a voice, not through air, through glass, through pressure. It said my name, just once, then silence. All at once, every reflection froze. The brightness drained away. The hospital died again. Only my own pale face stared back, dozens of them, line a circle. I felt the floor shift slightly, as if the room exhaled. A faint metallic taste filled my mouth. I took a step back. Then another. My reflection followed this time, but slower. When I reached the door, the metal handle was cold. I turned it. Just before I stepped out, I looked one last time. One reflection, farthest on the right, didn't move. It stood perfectly still, watching me leave. And then it smiled. The door closed. The hum stopped. And in the hall, everything was quiet again. Still, except for the faint echo, a slow, rhythmic tapping, coming from inside the mirrors. The fog was so thick, it felt like breath against my skin. Cold, slow, endless. I stepped out through the door, or what I thought was a door, and for the first time in hours, maybe days, I felt air that didn't belong to that place. The morning was pale, colorless, like the world had forgotten how to wake up. Behind me, the hospital stood still, untouched, its windows glowing faint yellow, as if night had never left. For a moment, I thought I heard someone speaking inside. Soft voices, names. Mine maybe. The gravel beneath my shoes was wet. Each step made a faint suction sound, like the ground wanted to hold me there. I looked down the road. The asphalt shimmered, curling in the fog like melting wax. And somewhere beyond it, I thought I saw the outline of trees. Finally, the forest. Freedom. I kept walking. The air smelled like rust and pine, and something faintly sweet. Something I couldn't name, but the further I went, the quieter it became. No birds, no wind, only the low hum that always followed me in that building. Still there, even out here. When I turned back, the hospital was still there, exactly as before. Its red cross faint in the fog, lights flickering in its upper floors, like someone was pacing room to room. I should have felt relief, but I didn't, because something was wrong. The road was gone. Where there should have been gravel and grass, there was only tile, white cracked and stretching into the fog. The air was heavier now, warm and cold at once, the kind of air that belongs in sealed rooms. I took one step back, and the floor clicked, like linoleum under a gurney wheel. I tried to breathe slower, but the hum deepened, a pulse, almost alive. The fog ahead began to shift, not move, shift, like it was breathing too. I whispered, "Hello?" And it answered, not with words, but with footsteps, soft, measured, coming from nowhere and everywhere. I turned again. The hospital doors were open now. A faint light spilled out, washing over the fog like milk poured into water. For a moment, I saw my reflection in the glass, or what should have been mine. But the figure didn't move when I did. It just stood there, still, waiting. My hands were trembling, though I didn't feel afraid anymore, just tired, like I'd been walking forever. The fog brushed my shoulders as I stepped forward. Each breath felt thinner, lighter. The hallway stretched ahead, clean, quiet, a familiar hum filling every corner. I told myself it was just exhaustion, that I'd circle back, find the real exit this time. But the walls began to narrow, the lights dimming one by one as I walked deeper in. I passed a sign that read, Ward B, then another, Ward C, then again Ward B. The letters flickered, their edges bleeding light into the fog. I stopped walking. Somewhere behind me, a door clicked shut, softly, and then silence. I could still see the morning beyond the windows, but it didn't move. The fog outside was still, frozen. I pressed my hand to glass. It was cold, colder than it should have been. My reflection stared back, but this time its lips moved. No sound came out, but I understood. It said, "You never left." I wanted to argue, to deny it, but the hum grew louder, the floor trembling softly beneath my shoes. Somewhere in the distance, a stretcher rolled by, slow wheels turning, no one pushing it. The light above me flickered once, then again, and in that stutter brightness, I saw the door I'd come through, wide open, morning fog spilling in like smoke. For a second, I believed I could reach it. I walked faster, then slower, then stopped, because every step led me back to where I started. The same hallway, the same hum, the same faint whisper my name. I leaned against the wall, closed my eyes, and in the quiet, I finally understood. Some doors don't lead out. They lead in. The fog pressed closer, curling around my feet, my hands, my face. Warm, gentle, almost kind. I took one last breath, and the hum faded, soft as a heartbeat slipping away. When I opened my eyes, the hallway was gone. The fog was endless, and somewhere behind it, the hospital waited. Lights still on, voices still calling. For me,